Hey everybody, Josh Stolad, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy and Garland ISD, Garland USA here for part 2 of Unlock the Middle's flagship show, 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome everybody to this awesome evening. You know what? And it's all about our field. And you know what the constant thing in our field is? Adapting to change. And you know what? Today we went through that. And as awesome educators, we overcame the obstacles because you know what? The only way to be successful is learning from each other. So right now we have an awesome guest we're picking up from part 2. And you know what? I feel that the best way to do it, this Dean, is to get started all over again with our introduction.
Absolutely.
In case some people did not join us. But before we get into our awesome guest, very supportive because he went to his office.
He did go to his office.
So Dean, welcome everybody.
Hey, listen, Dean Packard, one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. It's great to be here. Sunday night's all about getting better together. Dr. Nagler here is with us tonight. We're just going to be talking about a superintendency that has just grasped on to the things that came out of COVID and just took those changes and brought them to his school district and just made the teaching more efficient, the learning better, and just things of that nature where, you know, I love that progressive thinking. And in this field, sometimes we don't always get that progressive thinking because sometimes somewhere in some educational institutions, I don't want to use the word complacency, but things that you know seem to work okay, and that's all right. We don't look for that why we do what we do with that betterment. So tonight's show is all about just trying to be living in your why, as Principal Caffelli said, and really making it happen to a high level. So again, I'm the principal of Charlton Middle School, Charlton, Massachusetts. Great to be here and excited tonight to learn and talk to Dr. Nagler here and go from there. Josh, back to you for a second.
So without further ado, we've had Dr. Nagler before. He was part of our principals roundtable approximately a month ago.
Superintendents, we don't talk building base, we talk global here. Okay.
I apologize.
Yes, please.
Because I still got that I still got that whole Dallas Cowboys beating the Redskins thing. So we had Dr. Nagler here, part of the superintendent roundtable, and I suggest that everybody out there, please go and listen to these awesome leaders of their communities. But can you please, Dr. Nagler, tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us your foundation as an educator. Let us know where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I'm a city kid, so please call me Mike. That Dr. Nagler doesn't sit so well with me. I was born and raised in New York City, product of New York City public schools. Taught there in my beginning for about 11 years. And then made a transition out to Mineola in 1999. So I've been here for a while. I started as an assistant principal, was the high school principal, was a deputy superintendent, and I just started my 14th year as superintendent. And those of you adding things up, it's 36 total years.
Oh.
So it's a lot. I don't feel that old, but evidently I am. So it all kind of. Well, kind of, but I still love what I do. So
I was gonna say, Mike,
I'm not going anywhere.
Are you still having fun? Because that's the key.
Yeah. I have a lot of fun, thank God. I'm blessed. I'm blessed with a great board of education, great faculty, great students, great community. So it really makes my job very easy.
You know, going back, you go 36, 37 years ago, you think about there's been tremendous change in education. And, you know, as you step back and think about the difference between going to school today versus 20 years ago, man, it's like, okay, light years away. 20 years ago, really didn't have access to the technology that we've had today. So let's talk about that change and how it's evolved and kind of from your lens, where you see it's all at.
Yeah, I'm often quoted as saying the only human that embraces change is a baby with a dirty diaper. And to me, that kind of sums up the whole idea of school and change. We're very reluctant to do anything different. And I think it's in part because, you know, we all went to school. We all have fond memories of school. We all think we know how to teach because we were taught. People have no problem coming up and telling us things, what we should fix. You wouldn't tell that to a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, it's just the notion that you know as much as your educators and your administrators kind of makes me chuckle. But be that as it may, that's what we're faced with as leaders. We're dealing with a mindset from 20 years ago. And I think the big problem today is, well, the internet I would list as number one. We didn't have the internet when we were kids. And we didn't have social media when we were kids. And what kids face because of that is twofold. One, the exposure they have to each other. We've never. I'm so happy no one followed me with a camera when I was 17 and 18 years old.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
very happy about that. And I think the other thing is, information is ubiquitous. Practically every family has an internet connection. It's very unrare that we don't have some kind of connectivity, and that brings all the information we want. But what do we teach? By and large, we teach content. We teach information that they can get without us. So, and we don't bother to reconcile that as educators. We don't pause and say, maybe we should stop teaching content because they can just look it up. And maybe we should teach them how to use that content or solve problems with what they learn or apply it differently. Those are the kind of conversations I like to have. I like to say, well, let's think of things a little differently. And what would benefit kids? I guess my biggest example is we don't teach information literacy and all of the pitfalls of the internet and how to decipher good information from bad and how to make a judgment on your own and not be told by your Facebook group, this is what you should believe. It's probably the most critical skill that our present adults are missing. Our adults don't know how to filter information, but we don't teach that. And we're stuck in some because we've always taught. I don't want to pick on a subject; I'll get yelled at. But home and career skills. We've always taught home and career skills, so that's what we're going to keep doing. And things change. I mean, I think that's the society has changed, and we're not keeping up.
I just, before we go on to the next question, you say we teach content, and Josh is probably going to just jump right on and say the same thing I'm going to say. We teach kids, we don't teach content. And if you don't recognize the fact that we teach kids over content, guess what? Nobody cares. I'm not going to say nobody cares about the content. The content's going to fall through the cracks on a lot of kids. So that's why we talk about that differentiation and looking at kids before content all the time. So you get that from your seat. I know that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I say, concept before content, and it's interesting that we blow over why we're trying to learn something.
Agreed.
But yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do teach children, and sometimes we lose sight that that's why we're here.
Bingo. That was part of what I wrote out today to my staff. So I'm glad you said that. 100%. Josh.
Hey, Mike. One of the things that if you've been on a solid 2-3 years, one of the common denominator from teacher aide to bus driver to superintendent, one of the things is how adults sometimes create obstacles for the advancement of change. How people become, the adults become the obstacle to student success for whatever reason it might be. The cheerleading mom has a different perspective. The quarterback's coach has a perspective to the head coach. And so why do you feel that our field right now is so hard to evolve and change? What do you feel teachers, parents, what makes them so uncomfortable to see this brand new thing, that the idea that you're bringing to the table for a new way of looking at education, why are adults putting up those obstacles?
I think it goes back to what's the purpose of school. Now, what are we supposed to be doing? And I understand we say, you got to educate kids. To do what? Are we educating them to be citizens of a democracy, or are we educating them to join the workforce? And that's kind of the first thing we need to answer, because that changes how we teach and learn. But hypothetically, let's say we're teaching them for the workforce. So that's kind of what the last two industrial revolutions, our main job is to have gainfully employed people when they leave us. I think it's very apparent that this fourth industrial revolution is going to change the way we live and work. And we don't spend enough time talking about that. I think before we say we need to change something, the why is really, we don't dig deep into the why. I think the why really is the world's changing. we need to refocus or imagine what our purpose is. And I mean, jobs are, I was reading this, I had a demo of this GTP3, which is the new AI. My son found it, so it was very interesting. And you can literally type into this program, and it's a test site. You get a free site. Write me a story about Josh, Dean, and Mike's conversation on the podcast, and it will write you a story. And if you put some details in, like unlocking the middle, it'll go search the web and pull in information about unlock the middle. And it will do it all with a press of a button. Now, I show that to my teachers and say, what do you think about that? And they all lose their minds. The world's coming to an end. This is terrible. What do I said, well, that's what kids have at their fingertips right now. Do you think are we going to ignore it? Are we going to stick our head in the sand? Or are we going to embrace it and help our learners learn with it? And I think that happens time and time again. Most of our sports stories, if it's not a featured writer, is written by AI. They go out, they get the stat sheet, they learn the colloquialisms of the sport, and they mesh it together and they write the story. Most of your sports stories that you read are not human. That's a fact that's occurring right now. I can list 100 different jobs that's affected, where machines will do a better job. AI will do a better job. But that just means we need to work harder at finding that middle to where we complement machines and they complement us, and this missing middle of how we're going to go about our lives. So it's not doomsday to me. It's more the conversation has to happen. And I think that's the precursor to the change. Most change in education, and you guys have been around, there hasn't been a lot of change. There's been a lot of reform movements, but from those reform movements yielded very little change. So we like to drop a bomb on something and let it implode. And then when the dust settles, we just do what we always did. And that's what I'm fearful about the pandemic. That obviously was a different type of bomb, but it rattled our world. And there were a lot of good things that came out of that, but we're choosing to ignore them now because we're waiting for the dust to settle so we can go back to what we always did. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders to really call people out about that. And that's the tricky part.
I love that you're talking about reimagining because, Chris and I, when we first started the show 3 years ago, it was all about reimagining education and knowing what tomorrow is going to look like for us. The thing that I struggle with the most is that we are going to look at different skill sets to build within kids. Pushing a button and having a story written scares the heck out of me. Okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe because I'm just an older guy and and I get the teacher mentality. I was a teacher for 10 years and, honing in on specific writing skills and understanding how to do that is a very big task. But you're right, Mike. Things are changing. So what is public education's role and responsibility as they prepare kids for this next industrial revolution, as you speak about? So, sitting where you are right now, you're in with state legislators. You're talking about what this looks like at the upper levels of education. I would love, man, to think, you can go back to the 1700s. There's a certain thing that you taught. You read, write, problem solving. You got it. Arithmetic. Throw that in there too. Okay. Those are the things that are non-debatables. But the focus on how that gets done has got to change.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a heretic because it's after 5th grade and they we've taught them how to read and write well. Everything else is available to them. So to me it's more about accessing information, uncovering things you're passionate about, discovering things that you didn't know, what you're curious about, and work with that. We just started this Genius Hour in our 3rd and 4th grade, and the kids eat it up. They eat it up. They love. You mean I can go learn something I want to learn? Yes.
Of course you can.
And that's the beauty of it. That's what school's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a love of learning, not let me beat the joy out of you and make you learn what I want you to. And I think that's it's a obvious. It's not as simplistic as I make it. I get that, but it's constant. I constantly talk to my community and argue with them and debate them, and it's trust me, it's not just I say something and they believe it. It's this constant dialogue. Well, right now we're dealing with report cards, and we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, and my big question is, well, what does a 2 tell you? If your kid gets a 2, what does that mean? We have to be better at describing and assessing kids so everybody knows what they know and what they don't know and how they're going to move forward in their new knowledge. We just embraced proficiency scales in our 3rd and 4th grade, and I'm eating it up. I think it's the next wave of the dialogue about how we teach and learn. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a Marzano thing. It's West Coast. I picked it up out of the West Coast, but it basically takes the standard and makes it a hierarchy of skills. And if you picture that almost like little check boxes,
Yep.
and you speak to learners about here's your foundational skill. Show me the evidence that you've mastered that. Show me the evidence of the next, like a ladder. Every rung, show me the evidence that you have mastered this.
Clear and definitive.
And when you're done, I'm not going to give it to you anymore.
Yeah.
When you're done, we're going to move. You're going to keep moving. So that's a competency-based thing. But those things excite me about how do we introduce what we should be doing? How do we? I'll say it differently. How do we bridge from what we have to do to what we want to do? And I see our job as leaders is building that bridge. We're going to build the bridge. We're not going to ignore everything we have to do. We like our livelihood, so we'll do that. But we'll also move forward and build that bridge to the things we want to do. And there's definitely a happy medium.
I love that you're talking like that, Mike, because that is a game-changing mindset moving forward, and it's the steps we need to take. Speaking about moving forward, what's a DEV leader? What does that mean to you? Talk to people about what that means.
The dev leader, yes. Well, that's the title of my book. So it is an acronym for design thinking, entrepreneurial, and visionary planning leader. And I really speak about leaders having to change their mindsets and encompass these 3 different new mindsets to think about leading differently. And I have some, a lot of it is practical. So every example we've done here, I've been here long enough where we can give concrete examples of all of our instructional model and the things we move toward. And this year is unique because we've had the epiphany that we've kind of finished our instructional model from 5 years ago, and now we need to adopt a new one because we've evolved into new thinking and new practices, and we should recognize that. So the 5 was reframing assessment, was an integrated curriculum, was computational thinking, creative learning spaces, and a growth mindset. And all 5 of those we've worked on for 5 years diligently in something I call the dev cycle, where we go through this process over and over and over again to evolve to a new practice. And we're at the precipice of all 5 of those becoming new practices.
Did you find that changed policy within your district?
I think it changed everything. It changed everything. I'm a big believer. I call myself an idea man. I understand. I don't do the work. My teachers do the work. My principals do the work. So when we kick around an idea and they embrace it, I support it. Whatever they need from me, they get. But for growth mindset, to give you an example, we started in pre-K teaching about the brain. My 5-year-olds can tell you about their amygdala, about their prefrontal cortex, that their amygdala is their lizard brain, and that when their emotions are out of whack, they got to unlock the lizard brain. About neurons, about trying, how neurons fire, how you grow your brain. You're not born smart, you become smart. And we reinforce that every year. We're currently in 4th grade, so it's about 6 years now. we launched it, and we redefined it, do it every year, and the teachers, and as the net gets cast wider and wider, we get more and more input, we change more and more, but we've never abandoned the belief that growth mindset is very important for kids to learn. So
So Mike, so Mike, I mean, it takes a strong leader with a focus and vision to empower others to learn from their mistakes and everything. Now, how do you implement this part of having design thinking part of their leadership? How do you incorporate the foundation to combine these two things, design thinking and leadership?
yeah, so design thinking is a philosophy that you have to empathize with people to understand the problem. And through that empathy, you can define the problem. And once you define the problem, you then seek solutions. So the solutions is this iterate stage where most of the things you come up with are going to fail. They're not going to be good. But if people collectively are coming up with it, then you should test it or prototype it. And when you throw that idea out and you prototype it, it either is going to fail miserably and you need to start all over again, or it needs to be tweaked and we can bring it back to the table for a revision and go back out again. So it's kind of like, I'll give you, whenever a new iOS is released, do you download it right away? I'm asking you, do you download it right away?
I wait a little bit.
Why do you wait?
Because I'm comfortable with what I have.
Okay, that's one piece.
Yeah.
What's the other? What do they say about the new release? Before you adopt it, you should wait a little while because it's buggy.
Yeah.
Now, and why is it buggy? It's buggy on purpose. You know, entrepreneurial startups have something called an MVP, a minimal viable product. They put together the thing that they can get out to customers, launch, and they know it's bad. And what they do is you get, it's beta. They say, oh, it's beta. Don't worry, we're going to fix it. And they wait till you complain, and then they fix it. And that whole process is, I'm getting feedback, immediate feedback. I'm not going to worry about what I think I should fix. I'm going to let the people tell me what to fix, and then I'm going to fix it. And I think that's something that we don't do at school. We're so afraid of making mistakes or rolling something out. We roll something out, we wait a year. We have a meeting at the end of the year. How did it go?
Mike, where did you get this from? I'm really engaged in what you're presenting in regards to design thinking.
We launched a Fab Lab in probably about 8-9 years ago, which is our high school version of Woodshop. It's Woodshop on steroids. And when we started building the curriculum, you know, one of my people is an engineer, and they said, well, you know, we should use the engineer process. And I said, well, what's the engineer process? And well, it's really design thinking. Well, let's talk about that. And then as I saw it in action, I'm like, hey, you know, this is something that you can use this mindset for everything you do, because it makes so much sense. Let it fail, okay, but the feedback loop has to be really good. If your feedback loop is not good, it's not going to work. But if you're into it and you get that feedback and you make corrections and you go back out and do it again and keep doing that, the product you make will be the right one for your learners, because they're helping you and your teachers are helping you build it. What works in Mineola may not work in Texas, may not work in Massachusetts.
Right.
But so you got to rip it apart and make it yours.
Mike, what's E&R thinking? What does that mean?
E&R is kind of it stands for evolution, not revolution. So I don't believe that there's a quick fix to anything. I believe very much, I use the metaphor of the frog, although people tell me scientifically it's not true. I say if you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. You put a frog in tepid water and you bring it to a boil, you'll cook it. Slow change over time works. So instead of these reform movements, these revolutions, you're going to drop a bomb. No, slow, steady, purposeful change over time, people get on board with, and if they have a role in it, it becomes successful. But in that, you got to be able to let it go if it doesn't work. A lot of leaders can't do that. You introduce something and it fails, you can't say, "Oh, you know what? That sucked. Let's do something else." No, we got to keep working on it because I for whatever reason. Um, but the evolution also takes away this initiative fatigue, because you never should introduce something that's not building on the previous. So you have teachers, they talk about initiative fatigue, and if I wait this out, it'll go back and change. It'll Josh, what do you call them? You have a name for them?
The Weebies.
The weebie. There you go, weebies. Thank you. I forgot that. But I think so how do you? That has to be slow, steady, purposeful. Big idea like growth mindset can permeate your whole culture if you constantly work at it and let it evolve. What it looks like in my kindergarten is not what it looks like in my high school. It shouldn't. It's completely inappropriate. It's got to be age appropriate. So how it becomes a culture in the high school is very different than my elementary. And but we have a common understanding we need it everywhere. You don't get to pick and choose. You're not going to do growth mindset. No, that's important. How you do it is I leave to my principals. Now I joke with them all the time. I was a principal. I don't want to do that job anymore. That's too much work. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to help you do that job as best you can, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. That's why you're the principal and I'm not.
How about some examples of that in action, the ENR?
So we started a badge book. I visited a district called Elizabeth Forward outside of Pittsburgh, small suburban rural district, and they were doing digital badges for kindergarten. And I love the idea. This is going back 7 years ago. I come back home and I said, we have to do this. And the digital side of it was a mess. The parents hated it. The teachers hated it. And instead of forcing it, I pivoted and I said, you know what? Forget the digital. Let's make it a sticker book. Just like kids. So that's age appropriate for kindergarten. We'll make it a sticker book. And we'll get rid of the report card and we'll replace it with the badge book. Now, the badge book, the teachers built. They designed it. The first year had very good, received very well. So now the following year, we refined it and made it better. So now that's pre-K, K1. By the time we hit second grade, the standards got a little crazy, but instead of throwing it out, we made micro badges. So we started with the concept of, let's make micro badges, and you add those up and you get a mastery badge. And we hit third grade and all hell broke loose. It just wasn't working. That was last year. And there were a lot of mistakes in implementation. Parents were not happy, teachers were not happy. And I said, okay, we got to do this radically different. So let's go do our research. And that's when we found proficiency scales. And the proficiency scale was the natural evolution of the badge book in third and fourth grade. So now I'm in fourth grade. I'm 6 years into this idea that I had, that my teachers have gone through dev cycle after dev cycle. And we don't have report cards anymore. Think about that. All of our communication is through badges and discrete information that kids need to know, and how we articulate between the learner, the parent, and the teacher where they are and where their next move should be. And next year, we're looking to gamify it in middle school. So next year, I'm sorry?
It's revolutionary. It's a game changer.
Yeah. So and it's all based on evidence. It's all based on student work. Go figure. How do we know what kids are doing? We look at their work.
Go figure is right. Think about that for a second. Hey, a silly question. If there was a simple process, a simple roadmap for how does a leader start to implement change, what are like the 3 to 4 steps that they have to embrace in order to begin that evolutionary process of change?
Well, I think the first one is you have to articulate your vision. You have to paint this picture of what we're trying to accomplish collectively. And that picture, if you will, if you get this image in your head, you make it a puzzle. And you give sections of the puzzle to different people to put the pieces together. And if you say to your staff, and it's all your staff, because everyone needs to be involved, including your parents. If you believe this picture, if you believe this vision I'm painting, how should we do it? And let's try it together. I don't like the word pilot. A lot of leaders like to use the word pilot. We're going to pilot something. I think that has a connotation that it's temporary. I like phase a lot better. I think in semantics in words makes a big difference, that you shouldn't say, like we said before, we don't teach content, we teach children. We're not going to pilot something. It's not temporary. It's not weebies. This is phase 1. Next year is going to be phase 2. The following year is going to be phase 3. We're going to keep phasing this damn thing until we get it right. And when we paint that picture, we're not done, because the imagery should be, it's leading us toward this place we want to go. What's the next step? Because the world changed in the time that we were building it. The world changed. So what did we miss when our heads were down working, that we need to look up now and say, oh, now here's the next thing we got to really prepare our kids for?
So Mike, talk to us. One of the things that really resounded in my brain when I heard you on another podcast was about the beautiful ideas. It's hard to write a book, but the way you expressed everything right now has been so captivating. Tell me, somebody that's in Iowa right now, tell me about your book. Someone who's in the middle of Wyoming right now that was looking for something to read. Tell me about your book.
I think the book tries to capture, there's 2 parts to it. The first part is really my theory of leadership. And to me, there are certain types of leaders. There are people that, just steer the ship, avoid the icebergs. Everything's fine, you don't have to worry about it. And there's a group of people that like to complain about everything because everybody's doing something to them. The state did this, the parents did this, the teachers did this. Yes, that's life. We call that life, and we live it. We don't need to complain about it. Then there's another group that just go half-cocked. So they want to be change agents, but there's really not a purpose to why they're doing it. Maybe the neighboring district that did something, and they say, oh, they did it, we got to copy it. And then there's this group of leaders that are very thoughtful, that say, my kids in kindergarten, in the next 13 years, I'm pretty confident society is going to change. When they graduate my school system, am I preparing them for that society? I'm not preparing them for today. So am I preparing them for 2035? Most people don't think that far ahead, but we are responsible for children in my seat for 14 years. I better be thinking about where they're going, not where they're starting. So I think that's true for wherever you are in our country. If you believe that we need to prepare children for what's coming, what's about to come. I don't like this. I think it's a little cliche to say, oh, we're going to prepare them for jobs we don't know that are going to exist. That's true, but it's not the job we're preparing them for. It's all the skills they need to survive in the world that job resides. And if you're of that mindset, then you have to do things differently in your building. In your district, you have to. There's no way we can continue to what we're doing to produce a different result. It's not going to happen by accident. We have to be purposeful in that endeavor.
And you said there was 2 parts to it. What's the second part?
The second part is all the practical. So I personally, I don't like to listen to people if there's no meat on the bone. So if you're not a practitioner and you give me this theory and yeah, rah, everything's great, the second part's the practice. We did the work. We have plenty of examples of what we've done over the last 10 years, and we share that to say, and I have 17 different people write anecdotes in the book. So don't believe me. All of my people are also writing, and I'm not making it up. And of course, if you really want to test me, come visit, and you'll see everything I talk about in Mineola. But yeah, absolutely. We host people all the time.
You have a
Mike,
copy of your book in front of you?
yeah.
I do. Now that I'm in my office, I
There
do.
you go.
If I were at home, I wouldn't have it.
How can we purchase that? Where can I?
It's on Amazon. You can Google mine Nagler dev leader Nagler, and it'll come up. I think it's I think when you change this mindset as a leader, you get to have a lot of fun. Like I shared last time very briefly, we launched a new version of high school this year that has got me jazzed. I'm running to work every morning. And we got rid of all the periods, and we put all the subjects in the cloud. And we teach kids how to be self-directed and plan their day, and we mentor them, and we deal with all of the issues that life brings for them and still get them through school. And we're meeting all the graduation requirements, but they're also pursuing passions and things that they're interested in during school time. So we just launched it. I'm super excited about it. We're cutting a deal with Cisco to level up a bunch of their resources, so my kids can get access to professionals that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to find. I call it their Rolodex. I'm taking their Rolodex. You guys would know what a Rolodex is. Our young learners will not. But the concept of a Rolodex where kids can go through these occupations and these people as resources to help them learn more about what they want to learn. So so far so good. We have a great group of people working on it. Just again, my idea, and I go down and cause trouble, but the people make it happen.
You're going to get a gold sticker for your feedback, okay? Because you're actually creating change right in front of everybody's eyes. You're making school relevant, real, and giving kids the application of what the next world is going to be like for them. Think about that for a second. And you're stepping out of a systems approach to bring them something different. You're talking about change, evolution, preparing for tomorrow, thinking about 5 years down the road as you're creating your strategic plans and having those conversations about what that looks like, bringing in constituents, bringing in your kids' voice, student voice, bringing in consumer voice, parent, caregivers. All of a sudden, schools can change when you do that, man. And kudos to you for doing that. And I'd love to pick your brain about the middle level stuff because I'm always looking. But like any other district, when you are short on resources, that's the number one thing that doesn't allow you sometimes to get to where you want to be. And the biggest resource is our human teachers.
Yeah. I think we got to rethink the way we use them. Maybe five periods a day isn't the only way to do it. I agree that we should never lose touch that people have this mindset that the pandemic, because we were isolated, that was good teaching. I don't agree with that at all. I think we need human interaction. Always need human interaction. We never should replace that. But the ability to do it differently, why are we afraid to talk about that?
Because we have a thing called an evaluation system that has to be, and never mind, I'm not going down that road. That needs to be tweaked as well.
It's funny because all of those things are reality. We have to deal with reality. And that's the bridge that I was talking about. We have to do all this stuff. Okay, let's not spend a lot of time on it though. Our time is precious. It should not be wasted on stupid stuff we have no control about. But let's spend the time on the stuff we want to do and make a match. It's like the match game. Okay, we're going to figure out how to evaluate using this new system. Right. And then we could make a bridge. Because people call me very cavalier. because the state police haven't arrived at the state education police. The state police is different. The state education police haven't arrived at my door. And if they did, I'm okay, fine. Whatever you want me to answer, but I'm not worried about them. I'm doing what's right by kids. So it's got to be good. Even if it's not cavalier. I just think if you don't push those boundaries, nobody will. And it came to me many years ago. I had an epiphany that I was in charge. Because my first few years as superintendent, I really didn't feel that way. And then I woke up as I was complaining about something. And so we should change this, we should do that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm the guy in charge. I could do that. What's stopping me from doing that?
The how.
And then we learn the how. The how is really explaining the why.
Mm-hmm.
Because it all goes back to that. Explain your why. And if you're solid with your why, and your why is always kids, so you're always going to be solid with that. And why this method is better for them and better for families. You're on safe ground. You're on terra firma, and you're okay. But you can't do that alone. You have to build your champions. You have to get your people in line with that vision. You have to change your vision if it's gonna. Don't be married to something that's going to fail. Launch something that is going to work and tweak it. It's okay. Let it work. It's going to evolve into whatever new thing it is.
And you know what, Mike? That's exactly who we need in the front line. Educators like you who are willing to go out there and make sure you bring new ideas to this old suit that we have. And you know what? We value, and I think that I've learned a lot today. And I'm going to have to rehear this again in the other podcast to make sure that I take away a little bit more sitting in my chair. And so thank you very much for accepting our invitation, for being here tonight, 100%. Opening the eyes to so many other leaders out there that, hey, you wanted that leadership chair. So it's time to be a change agent, create chaos sometimes to reevaluate where you're at, your sphere of influence, whether it be Iowa, Wyoming. So thank you, Mike, for being here tonight. And I'd like to remind everybody that today is National Custodian Day. So don't forget about your custodians tomorrow. I'm letting you know, so there's no reason. And if you're not hearing, that's your fault. And also, blessings, much love to all the principals out there. I sent you all a special text letting you know how much I appreciate you. The ones in my sphere of influence. It's National Principals Month. So share some love to that chair. Trust me, it's not an easy chair. Even Mike said that's a hardworking chair. So
absolutely. It is the hardworking chair. You can't do it. You got to have good people.
So what have you launched? What have you launched lately? That's what I'm taking away. What have you launched lately? Who am I going to say that to tomorrow? What have you launched lately? Tell me what you've launched and how's it working for you? Just good stuff, man. Really, just really good. And
I just want to add that all the stuff I talked about is free. We share everything. We believe in OER. So if you go to my webpage at mineola.k12.my.us, you wanted those badge books, it's there. You want the integrated curriculum, it's there. You follow me on Twitter, you'll see all the stuff we do. And reach out. That's how Josh found me. He reached out on Twitter. That's a great PD. And I will always answer, and my people will always answer. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. My Twitter is at Nagler's S Notion, NAGLERS Notions. I know that's a pretty lame handle, by the way. It was my blog back in the day when it was a blog, and now I got too many followers to change it.
Once again, thanks a lot, Mike. And don't forget our Red Zone this Thursday. Join us because this show, this coming Thursday, has to do with supporting EL, emerging bilingual students, and how to help them out. Because if you're in Iowa, speaking to me slowly because I know Spanish does not help me. And putting me in special ed does not help me. So it's very important that all educators from around the country listen to the specialists that are going to be coming in this Thursday so that we find better ways of supporting our kids that are coming in from El Salvador, Honduras, Vietnam, Afghanistan. They're everywhere now. And so it's how are we providing them, not them, but our fellow team members in the classroom with the tools to make them successful so they become successful citizens of our beautiful country. Dean, Red Zone, this Thursday.
Great stuff. I plan on being there, Josh. Thanks for reminding me. That's good stuff. Mike, on behalf of everybody on the call here tonight, Mike, Josh, thank you so much. You know what? I love talking revolutionary change, how systemic change can affect an entire district, man. Kudos to you. Keep going. I'm going to reach out to you as well because I want to have some sidebar conversations with your middle level principals just to see what they're doing. But I'll send you a text message on that. But man, everybody out there, have a great week. Keep being that change agent. Be that person that every student can turn to whenever they need somebody. Have a great week, everybody, and continue doing what's best for kids.